Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we plant up a rock garden. So let's go. Just to give you perspective, we are on the west side of my house, which is my front yard. And we've been working on some flower beds out here in the front part of my yard. Up there is my front walkway. I have a pond up there. And as we basically just pan around the yard, you can see there's a lot of lawn. But over the last few years, I've been making flower beds where the lawn ends and where the woods begin. I never thought that that was really an option until about 3 or 4 years ago. And it has been work in progress, to be honest with you. I am constantly changing up flower beds. And one area that I just haven't been happy with is right here. And I call this a rock garden, clearly because there's a rock there. And I have changed this area up a few times over the last few years. I've been working on it this morning. I weeded a whole bunch around the rock, but then I also pulled out a bunch of perennials. Perennials, in fact, that I planted there just last year. I made a video planting up this area, and honestly, I wasn't happy with it. So I took everything out. All I have left to do is weed this area. But before I finish weeding, let me show you the plants that I pulled out of this area. So here is the stash of plants that I was able to dig up from around the rock. I don't know the names or varieties of everything here, but I'll do the best I can to tell you what they are. That's a type of sedge or a carex, and I'm almost sure it's called blue zinger. I had 3, and Mr. Budget Gardener dug one out because he thought it was a grass, just regular grass. He did that about a week ago when he put irrigation around the rock. That's okay. It grows super fast, and I don't blame him. I mean, look at it. It looks like grass. It is a grass, but that's okay. It's an ornamental grass. And then there's euonymus. And I am almost sure I got these either from my mother-in-law's house or an area where my mother-in-law used to dump a lot of her garden waste. So you can see that there's like a plain green euonymus. And, you know, I'm still trying to figure out how to landscape with it. If you have ideas of what you do with your euonymus, I'd love to know. I just didn't love where it was placed. And then there's this other one that's very pretty. It's a variegated type of euonymus. I think the irrigation hit it, so it has a little bit of rusty red color on it. I was looking up on the internet ideas on what to do with euonymus, and I saw some really cool ideas of taking euonymus and putting it in a pot. So I might end up doing that. And then over here, there is kind of like a bluish color sedum, and I just divided it down to like 3 or 4 pieces per pot. I'm assuming that they will fill in nicely for next year in those pots. And then in the next tray over here, I had started to divide that carex down to like 3 pieces per pot, thinking that they're going to fill in by next year. And just the same plants that we've talked about. And then over here, this plant is a scabiosa, and it's a shorter variety. So I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to deadhead it because it really needs to be deadheaded. But I did take the liberty to divide it into many pieces. So I'm going to keep those for next year. I'm just not sure where they're going to go. And then that right over there is an artemisia. It's super tiny, but it'll flush out. So I was very busy digging everything up, but I just wanted to show you what I dug out of that area. Quite a few plants. The other plant that was pulled out of the rock garden area were lamb's-ear. And I had planted the lamb's-ear in that rock garden area last year. So a few months ago, we came in and we just dug them up and divided them and moved them along the front of this flower bed. So all that's left to do right now is finish weeding around the rock, and then we're going to plant a bunch of annuals in here, mulch it, and call it done for this year. This whole business of emptying out a flower bed just to replant it might seem a little over the top, but What I tell people is, what's the difference between that and, let's say, cleaning out a closet in your house? A lot of times I like to do that. If I'm going to clean a closet, I'm going to empty out the whole entire contents of that closet, and I'm only going to put back in the closet what I really want to go in that closet. But I can really see everything if it's all pulled out. And that's how I feel about flower beds also. I don't feel like I do that 100% in every single flower bed I have. I think that would be a lot. But this was a small area, and for me, it was so worth it to pull everything out of this area. And it's unfortunate because I did take the time last year to plant it all up. But in hindsight, I think that I jam-packed it too much for it being such a small space. I think if I had kept it a little bit simpler, a little bit leaner, maybe I would have been more happy with it. And that's something that I'm trying to get better about, is not jam-packing my beds, because I do have a tendency to do that. And I think when you do that, sometimes it can look a little messy, a little too much. It's hard for your eyes to settle on the plants because there's so much happening in the bed. And then not only that, what I'm learning is if a bed is jam-packed a little too much, then yes, it can suppress the weeds, but on the flip side, the weeds that do come in there, it's hard to get to them because it's so jam-packed. So with this space, what I'd like to see happen, at least for this year, is I just want it to be nice and lean and very simple. And I want to give it a year to basically breathe. Even though I'm weeding it right now, I know that more weeds are going to come next year. I'm sure weed seeds have dropped, and I want to be able to get all those weeds out of this bed. And then I can always come back in and plant a few perennials in here, but not as many as I had put in here before. In case you're wondering what this is, as well as this, we put in drip irrigation in here, so I'm keeping these here for now. I know Mr. Budget Gardener wanted to keep them in here as he was figuring out the irrigation. So when he has time, I'll just ask him if we can remove these now that drip irrigation has been installed in this bed. So when I was thinking about this space and what I wanted to do with it, I figured we might as well put in some annuals because, as you know, I still have a lot of annuals that I started from seed that haven't made their way into the ground. So why not just pack this with a bunch of annuals? I think that would look really pretty. I'm almost positive I planted Vinca in this bed maybe 2 years ago, and it did really well in this bed. So I figured I might as well try that plant again. And also, Mr. Budget Gardener just limbed up a bunch of trees in this area, which is going to even allow for more sunlight to come here. And Vinca, the annual variety of Vinca, thrives in full sun. So it should do well, even more so than it did in the past, now that the trees have been limbed up in this area. But that's something I definitely believe in, is that if there's something you just don't love in your yard, it could be a tree, it could be a shrub, it could be something that was there when you bought your house. And if you don't love it, then why is it still in your yard? That's how I feel anyway. I want to be able to enjoy my flower beds. And that's why a long time ago in a different flower bed, we had 3 arborvitae. They were nice, but I didn't love them where they were, so we removed them. And I'm happy that we did. It's funny, I have always wanted to have a rock garden, and I consider this a rock garden because of the rock that's here. And then in my backyard, I also have some rock that's back there, and I call it a rock wall, but it's basically a rock garden. And I struggle with both of these areas. I just have a really hard time being creative to get something that looks really nice. I know a lot of people like to plant hens and chicks. I'm not a huge fan of hens and chicks. I think it's a plant that you either love or don't like. And I don't know, there's nothing against the plant. It's just not something I love. And I know that like a lot of sedums would look pretty in here, but I had sedum in here and it didn't look that great to me, but maybe it's because there were so many other plants in this bed. I'm not sure. So I won't give up on it. If I want to, I might end up at some point putting some sort of sedum back in here. I do have the taller type of sedum, like the Autumn Joy sedum. Maybe next year I could try that and see how that looks. But I think just cleaning out this bed and adding a layer of mulch will make it look really nice, even if I didn't do anything else in this area. I recently did a garden tour. I walked right by this spot. I didn't even show you because there was nothing to show. It was so overgrown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some annuals to plant in this bed. I'm going to get some mulch, and I'm also going to get some hand pruners. I want to cut back some of these tattered looking leaves from the lambs here, and then I have a root that needs to be cut back here as well. Question of the day: is it too late to plant annuals even though it's August 10th and I could get a frost in the next month and a half or so? Nope, it's not too late. So if you still have annuals in your yard that you need to get in the ground, or if you see annuals on the clearance rack, why not buy them? Get them in your landscape. They're beautiful still, and they'll add a pop of color in spots of your yard that need color. So no, I'd say it's never too late until you have a frost the next day. Then it might be too late. So let's get planting. Okay, we're going to start with some annual white vinca. They are going to be so much happier in the ground than they are in their 6 cell packs. I really love this plant, and it's actually very easy to collect the seeds from Vinca. So if you have this in your landscape, what I can do is put a link to a video that I made that shows you how to collect the seeds from the Vinca plant. It's something so silly like cleaning out a flower bed and just packing it with color, no matter what time of year it is, that I think can give someone so much joy. And I'm all for that. That's why I still like to go to the garden center every so often, maybe not this year because I still have annuals to get in the ground. But let's say I didn't have any annuals to get in the ground, or let's say you don't have any annuals to get in the ground, but you just want that pop of color somewhere in your yard. Just check it out. Go to a big box store or a local garden center. They probably are starting to mark down their annuals. And you can just buy something off the clearance rack just to add some color to your yard, somewhere where it's lacking. I live in zone 5B, so my days are limited, but I'm still planting annuals. So I'm trying to hopefully motivate you and show you that it's not too late. And after all, these poor annuals need to get in the ground anyway. They're not doing any good by being in the 6 cell packs that are still on my rolling cart. I used to be very hard on myself when it came to things like that, when it came to gardening, and that I didn't achieve all my goals. I didn't get all my plants put in. You get to a certain point in life that you have to let that go. And I've let that go. I have enjoyed a lot of the plants that I started from seed. And whatever I didn't get potted up or I didn't get in the ground, it's okay. These plants are definitely lacking some nutrients. So what I will do probably tomorrow is give them some liquid Miracle Grow, just to give them that boost of fertilizer. If it was earlier in the season, I would be putting some slow release fertilizer into each planting hole. But at this point in the year, I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to give them liquid fertilizer every so often, whenever I think of it. Now, Vinca is pretty drought tolerant, but it should still do fine in this bed with the drip irrigation that's in here. I'm just removing some of the bottom leaves that are yellow. And I figured we'd start with the white ones and get those put in, and I'm just staggering them around in this bed. And then after we get the white ones put in on this side, we can then place the pink ones. Well, that was a pleasant sight. As I was getting some more trays of the Vinca, I saw a pollinator checking out the plant. How nice is that? See, so I'm doing my part. A lot of times in my gardening videos, I do like to make instructional videos showing you how to start a plant from seed, how to collect the seeds of a plant, how to divide a plant. But also, many times I like to just talk and tell you what's going on in my mind, why I'm doing something a certain way. And hopefully I'm giving you some inspiration or some ideas, or just letting you know that it's okay if you're in the same boat as me. It's all part of our journey when it comes to gardening. And I can't wait to do a garden tour in the future of this area to show you how it looks, rather than skip by this bed altogether. One thing that I'm not great about when it comes to my annuals that I start from seed indoors is cutting them back so that they're shorter and bushier. And I really need to get better at that. If you start seeds indoors, are you good about doing that to your seedlings? I feel like the only seedling that I'm good about doing that to are snapdragons. Partially because you see on YouTube, on videos, everyone is telling you now is the time to cut back your snapdragons or your dahlias so that they're bushier. But I don't see a lot of videos of someone telling me now is the time to cut back your Vinca. So next year, when I'm growing my Vinca, I will tell you now is the time to cut back your Vinca, and we'll do it together. Although with that said, the Vinca that I have out in my landscape that was planted a while ago is thriving and looking really good. So these are just a little bit leggier because they were in their 6L packs. But nevertheless, I really should be cutting them back while they're indoors to make them bushier. And just by being in the ground, they will become bushier over time. One thing I've also learned about my garden that I need to get better about is when I plant in a flower bed, I need to plant away from my lawn. I have a tendency to plant very close to my lawn. And when it comes to edging it or mowing the lawn, if I have plants that are too close, it's not a good sign. It's not a good thing. So I'm going to be a lot more diligent as I'm planting in here not to plant too close to the lawn. It's funny, as I'm doing my one flower bed at a time personal challenge this year, I honestly skipped over this bed. I was feeling a little overwhelmed by everything that was in here, and I hopped over to the bed that's just behind me over there. But I told myself I really can't keep going. I need to finish up this job so that I feel like I've completed this flower bed. So I'm really happy that you're joining me on this journey to finish up this flower bed. I wasn't even going to film it. I was just going to plant it up, but I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about what I'm doing in the space and why I'm doing what I'm doing, especially because some of you might have seen me plant up this area last year. And I wanted to explain why I took everything out of this area and why that's okay. So I think I'm planting, after this white one, maybe one more down there. And then after that, I'm going to tuck in some pink ones in this bed. And you know, I thought about adding some coleus because I still have coleus that I started from seed. And I thought about adding some other annuals, but then that goes against what my original plan was for this bed, which was to keep it kind of simple. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep it simple. So I'm going to plant one more white Vinca over there. I'm going to plant some white Vinca on the other side of this rock. And then after that, I'll plant all the pink ones in between the white ones, kind of just scattered here and there. And then I'm going to mulch it. And I'm going to show you what it looks like in the end. In a strange kind of way, I'm actually excited that I still have some Vinca left over, because that just means I have more areas I can plant in my yard. And this project is complete. I am so happy to get it done. I was avoiding this area, and I shouldn't have been. It wasn't too bad, but the area is so much cleaner now, and you can see that this Vinca is going to really pop now. I mean, it has to be happier in the ground than in those 6L packs. Some are blooming and some are not. And within a matter of weeks, they all should be blooming, especially after I give them a dose of fertilizer. And I really am loving this just simple look to a garden bed. I think there's something to be said about that. Just two colors, one kind of plant. Also, I wanted to mention that the mulch was wet because we had a lot of rain yesterday, but it will dry out and it will look more like that color over there. So that's why there's a difference in the mulch color, in case you're wondering. And there you go, one flower bed at a time. This flower bed is complete. on to the next flower bin. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspired you or motivated you in some way. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them down below. If you like this video, please consider hitting the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed already. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.